And thank you for joining us on Channel 13. I'm Trisha Keene.
And I'm Joe Moeller. Tonight, we're taking you, our viewers, on a journey of discovery or their lack thereof. Now, 13 Investigates has a behind-the-scenes look at how police respond or don't when we try to confirm information and ensure accountability.
And here's Chief Investigator Darcy Spears to explain how Channel 13 is trying to break down the blue wall of silence.
Back in May, I got a tip from a highly placed law enforcement source about inappropriate conduct involving Sheriff Kevin McMahill. That tip is one step in reporting a story, but not enough by our journalistic standards. We always work to cross-check information with multiple sources. Despite widespread discussion of the inappropriate conduct within the department and the details being reported online by an independent podcaster, Metro has stonewalled each of our attempts to get comment or confirmation.
Here's how it all went down. In May of this year, Metro worked with Channel 13 anchor Justin Hinton, offering a lengthy sit-down interview with Sheriff McMahill in preparation for a series of stories.
The purpose of this interview was to look at what he's planning on doing 6 months in, what he's done so far, and the changes that he wanted to make.
Setting a tone for his tenure as sheriff, McMahill said,
"We like to hold ourselves to a very high standard here."
5 days after that interview, as Justin was finalizing his series, 13 Investigates got a tip about the sheriff's alleged misconduct. So Justin put his project on pause.
I think that a lot of these things are really valuable for the community to hear, but based on this allegation, we didn't feel that it was appropriate to move forward.
That's in part because of things Sheriff McMahill said about his commitment to our community.
I'm going to get that 10% reduction in overall violent crime. I'm going to get it. But I'm going to get it because I'm leading and inspiring and empowering these men and women to go out there and do the work it is that they love to do so much. So I'm not worried about that accomplishment.
You're very confident about that.
I am.
What do you tell the community if it doesn't happen?
Well, I'll have to come right before them and tell them I was wrong and why I was wrong.
In that spirit of admitting when he's wrong and why, we sought a response to the tip we'd received.
To reach Sheriff McMahill about the tip, we went through Metro's standard protocol, contacting the Public Information Office, which is the gatekeeper for all media inquiries and the people we typically rely on for official comment. We told them the details we'd been given, and their immediate response was, "We don't comment on personnel matters."
Justin tried too.
So I called the communications department, talked to some of those folks. They said that the sheriff was busy. They also said that they don't comment on personnel matters.
To us, that indicates that there is, in fact, a personnel matter, because they never denied the information we'd been given and they never told us it was inaccurate. Is that an unfair assumption?
Well, if they're saying that there is some sort of exception that applies that would allow them to prevent disclosure of that information because of a personnel matter, I do think that's a fair assumption, that the existence of a personnel matter, absolutely.
Attorney David Chavez.
When you take your oath of office, you don't give up your privacy rights. That much is clear. However, you do open yourself up to some scrutiny because you're working on the public's dime.
One of my questions to the Public Information Office was about Metro's code of conduct and how it applies to the sheriff as an elected official. They told me to email the question, so I did on May 24th. I also asked for a direct phone call with Sheriff McMahill. I waited for nearly 2 weeks with no response, then reached out again on June 5th. To date, Metro has never responded to that email, and the sheriff has never called me back.
And if our job is to hold these leaders accountable, then at some point they do need to talk and they do need to express what's going on in their department, because these are things that impact everybody.
If the information about the sheriff's inappropriate conduct is true, then he could be in violation of department policy. Metro standards make conduct unbecoming an employee grounds for disciplinary action, including discharge. But the sheriff is not an employee, he's an elected official, so the conduct code may apply to him differently. To clarify that, we kept pushing for answers, with Justin also requesting a follow-up interview.
I was told that his calendar was full for the next 3 months, so I said, okay, then put me on the calendar in 3 months. And nothing happened.
We requested a copy of the sheriff's calendar, which is a public record.
And what I got back was a number of dates that had a lot of redacted information.
As for McMahill being booked solid for 3 months,
there were several days where there was nothing scheduled.
Those would be the open spots you see in between all the blackouts.
I think the public should have questions. I think the public, as I am wondering, why won't he go before us and talk to us? If he was so willing to talk at the beginning, when all of this started, now that there's an allegation that we're trying to ask questions about, why are you not willing to come forward and have the same sense of transparency to talk about it?
Attorney David Chavez calls the calendar redactions inordinate.
Redacting half of an entry for a public meeting or half of an entry for a public event. And again, I think that the primary issue here is that they're simply not justifying, as required under the law, why those redactions are appropriate.
Metro included two general reasons for the redactions: personnel records and privacy interests, but they weren't tied to any specific calendar entries.
It's not sufficient to just cite a case or to cite a statute and then pretend like the word personal interest or privacy interest is a magic incantation that exempts you from the Public Records Act. You have to be able to explain why that is.
As our repeated requests for a phone call with the sheriff continued to be ignored, we made another public records request asking for text messages and emails, including any between the sheriff and one of his subordinates.
The Nevada Supreme Court has been very clear that even if they're personal cell phones, as long as the communications relate to public business or to public duties, then those are fair game under the Public Records Act.
In this letter, Metro rejected our request, claiming it was too broad and too much of a burden for staff to produce the records.
It seems to me that the letter falls far short of what is required under the Public Records Act. The purpose of the Public Records Act is to promote transparency and accountability. Disclosure is the rule, and non-disclosure is the exception.
2 months into our search for answers, we accepted this invitation to lunch with the sheriff at Red Rock Station on July 19th, where media interviews were part of the program. We asked for a few moments to speak with the sheriff. Metro's communications director would not allow it. So we leave you once again with this.
We like to hold ourselves to a very high standard here.
Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates.
At the beginning of this week, 13 Investigates reached out once again to Metro to let them know when the story would air and ask for comment. Metro did not respond.
Well, 13 Investigates is committed to pursuing accountability and transparency when it comes to our elected officials. In early September, Chief Investigator Darcy Spears reported on allegations of misconduct and violations of police department policy by Sheriff Kevin McMahill. Well, tonight, Darcy continues trying to break down the blue wall of silence.
Sheriff Kevin McMahill claims to know who he answers to.
I get to run this police department. I answer to all of you.
Those words from a public program on policing at the Mob Museum in July, where he also detailed who he doesn't answer to.
So the mayor doesn't get to tell the sheriff what to do. The city council doesn't get to tell the sheriff what to do. The county commission.
And that's true. Sheriff McMahill is an elected official without any group or body of people responsible for overseeing him.
I'm not asking for your blind support. When we make a mistake, we'll fess up. And we mess up, we fess up, right? And then we're going to fix it.
We decided to go to other elected officials to see what they would do. We're coming to this body after our multiple attempts to get this directly addressed by Metro have failed. On Monday, 13 Investigates sought input from County Commissioners Michael Naft and Jim Gibson and City Council members Cedric Creer and Francis Allen Polensky. They make up most of Metro's Fiscal Affairs Committee, the body that oversees and approves the department's budget as well as any legal settlements for Metro's alleged misconduct. Metro Sheriff McMahill has told Channel 13 that he holds himself and all Metro employees to a very high standard of conduct. Yet he has refused to address rampant rumors about his own alleged violation of department standards. Those alleged violations and rampant rumors align with what multiple sources have told 13 Investigates, that Sheriff McMahill is believed to have had an affair with a subordinate member of the department who is still employed at Metro. Neither the sheriff nor anyone else in the department has denied the allegations. When asked, Metro's Public Information Office said, "We don't comment on personnel matters." But these rumors go far beyond being a personnel matter. If true, it's at a minimum a conflict of interest. and potentially abuse of office, abuse of power, and violation of the public trust.
The subordinate in question is classified as an appointed employee. According to Metro's Personnel Policies Manual, appointed employees serve at the discretion of the sheriff. He determines their salary, their promotions, and they can be terminated by the sheriff at will. As for the sheriff himself, well, that's why we went to the meeting, because who holds him accountable?
As elected officials, it is your obligation to get to the bottom of this and to ensure accountability if the alleged violations of Metro standards and ethics have occurred. That would be including conduct unbecoming an employee and acts evidencing moral turpitude. We look forward to following up with each and every one of you to see what, if any, action is warranted and is taken. Thank you for your time.
None of the committee members addressed the allegations or asked any questions after I spoke. Sitting just feet away, the sheriff listened in silence, leaving as the public meeting, which lasted less than 10 minutes, was adjourned.
Following Monday's meeting, I called and emailed the 4 Metro Fiscal Affairs Committee members in attendance. In a conversation about another matter, Commissioner Jim Gibson told me he had no comment on the allegations of misconduct involving the sheriff. We have not heard back from any of the other committee members. In our last report, we detailed the many attempts and ways we tried to reach Metro for answers before attending Monday's meeting, all of which were stonewalled. You can watch that story at ktnv.com. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates.